My husband is cowardly and incompetent, selfish and self-serving, and a philanderer by nature. While I was pregnant, he got involved with the current princess. In order to marry into the family, the princess whimpered and cried, hinting to my husband that she would never be a concubine in this life. Me husband had always pitied her, but since he'd been without an heir for many years, he couldn't bear to part with the child in my belly and my huge dowry at the moment. So he promised the princess that after I gave birth, he would demote me to a wife of equal rank, give the eldest son to her, and then grandly marry her into the family. But how could the princess know that my husband is actually infertile, and the child I am carrying is not of the Marquise's bloodline either? Mirong-An's birthday was just around the corner, but Princess Yaoan had someone deliver a mandarin duck jade pendant to our residence. Mandarin duck jade pendants always come in pairs, and the other one is worn by Princess Yaoan. After hearing about this, Xiaokui was so angry she smashed a teacup. "This is the last tea set. Xiaokui, you've pretty much ruined what little dowry I have." Seeing the shards on the floor, I couldn't help but remark with a sigh, "Xiaokui is my dowry maid, as close to me as a sister. She has a fiery temperament, is fiercely loyal to me, and always means what she says. It is just a pity that she can't tolerate any injustice, and is a bit too reckless in her actions." My husband, Mirong-An, was originally just a baihulang, but because I am the daughter of a great general, with my father's help, he climbed all the way to a high position and was eventually made the Marquis of Wuan. After Dad was killed in battle, the general's manner fell into decline. I am no stunning beauty, and my personality is cold and uninteresting. Mirong-An never liked me. It was only out of respect for my dad that he treated me with courtesy all these years. Once my dad died, Mirong-An's true nature was finally revealed. At first, he still had some regard for my dignity and only womanized outside. But as time went on, he brought one concubine after another into the household, and I couldn't control him anymore. Although Mirong-An had many women, the one he loved the most was still the stunning beauty he had once seen from afar when he was a baihulang. I guess every man has a white moonlight in his heart. Princess Yaoan, known as the #1 beauty of the capital, was Mirong-An's white moonlight. Princess Yaoan's husband had died some years ago, and for some reason, she took a liking to Mirong-An. Won had been a widow for many years. The other had a reputation as a playboy. As a matter of course, the moment they met, it was like dry tinder meeting a raging fire. This wasn't the first time Princess Yaoan had provoked me. After I got pregnant, there were even several times Princess Yaoan came to the door under the pretext of visiting me, to brazenly have an affair with Mirong and in the Marquise's study. Enjoying this thrilling sense of depravity, they thought I was completely in the dark. But I had known since the very first day they fornicated. The ones who were truly being kept in the dark were them. When the news that Princess Yaoan was pregnant arrived, I was stunned and confirmed it with the secret guard several times over and over before I was sure I hadn't misheard. How strange. I raised an eyebrow and looked at the tall, silent man before me. Really pregnant, with Mirong-An's child. The secret guard didn't speak, just knelt quietly on the ground, letting me stroke his head without any resistance. Liang Xuan is my secret guard. He has been by my side since childhood, is both brave and resourceful, and not to mention his unwavering loyalty to me. He also has a very handsome face. I am not particularly enthusiastic about matters between men and women. Marrying Mirong-An was just to fulfill my father's wish. My mother passed away from illness early. Her greatest hope before she died was for my father to take good care of their daughter and marry her into a good family. In the beginning, Mirong and I were living in what you could call blissful harmony. If he had known his place and behaved himself, I would have been happy to play along with him for a lifetime. Unfortunately, Mirong-An was not a man who knew contentment. Some people possess power and status that don't match them. They will become rotten and foul, acting recklessly and trying things they never dared to do before. Mirong-An is exactly that kind of person. My health has never been good. About 5 years ago, Xiaokui accidentally broke my medicine jar. Whenever she broke something, I would punish her by making her go to the courtyard to face the wall and reflect. But an hour later, Xiaokui ran in and told me in surprise that the flowers in the courtyard had withered. So it turns out, every time she broke something, she felt extremely guilty. So she just buried all these broken teacups and porcelain shards and stuff together in the flower bed. This matter was fishy, so I had a maidservant of mine who knows pharmacology go take a look, and she was horrified. She told me that this was a slow-acting poison that can cause a person's body to deteriorate without them noticing until they eventually stop breathing and die. Xiaokui panicked as soon as she heard this and quickly checked my food. As expected, she detected some residue of the drug on the cup I drink from. I never would have dreamed that someone had actually tampered with my food. I used the people my dad left me to investigate secretly. In the end, Liang Xuan snuck into Murong An's study and found that colorless, odorless drug. Murong An doesn't like me, and I don't care, but he actually wants to kill me. The deeper I investigated, the more I realized that Murong An was only gentle and considerate on the surface. In reality, he had long since despised me behind my back. Never mind his concubines, he was also keeping a mistress elsewhere, and that delicate, flower-like woman had even borne him a son who is a few years old. He hasn't divorced me yet, only because he has calculated that I don't have long to live, and is just coveting the entire general's estate my dad left me. I am not a paper tiger. I fell into his trap before only because I wasn't on guard against him. He dares to plot against me, and even attempts to seize my general's estate. Then I'll make sure he dies without a burial place. The Marquis of Wuan's estate is not small. I want to grasp it in my hands, and first, I need a child. Giving birth is like passing through the gates of hell, and since I am already preparing to get revenge on Murong An, I am naturally unwilling to risk my life again to have his child. None of the concubines in the mansion were pregnant, so I set my sights on the mistress Murong An was keeping outside. Murong An had no heir, and was extremely fond of this son. He intended to make the child the heir apparent. He went to great lengths to get the child into the mansion. Then he coaxed and fooled me, saying that I was barren, and that he didn't want to take another concubine, but couldn't let the family line die out. So he found a child from a side branch of the family, and had him adopted under my name as the main wife, to stop people from gossiping. He thought he had pulled off a grand deception, but little did he know, I had long been aware of the child's origins. Agreeing was just me going along with the situation. No need to give birth. No need to fight for him. I got this 6-year-old boy for free. Besides, there is a wet nurse to raise him, so I don't have to bother. I didn't actually dislike the child, but that mistress just had to be someone with impure intentions, perhaps feeling that her child was the sole heir to the Marquis of Wuan's estate. The mistress actually incited her son to talk back to me, and even wildly attempted to have Murong An divorce me, bring her directly into the mansion, and make her the main lady of the Marquis's estate. I never stop people who are determined to seek death. Not long after, that mistress got drunk, lost her footing, fell into the water, and died. Murong An was depressed and morose for a long time. I had originally wanted to keep that kid by my side, but he got the news from who knows where, and actually found out about the mistress's death. Without distinguishing right from wrong, his eyes all red, he insisted that I was the one who killed his mother. An ungrateful little wolf cub you can't raise, just as expected of Murong An's spawn. With no other choice, I could only send him out to be raised. But I heard that not long after he was sent away, the child got sick and died. I was holding the child and crying very sadly. Murong An didn't suspect me. This mother and son both died in an accident, and because of this, Murong An was depressed for a while. I still have to give birth to one myself. I was scheming, but in my heart, I utterly despised Murong An. If I had to get close to him, Pa, you might as well kill me. After thinking it over and over, my gaze fell on Liang Xuan, who was kneeling by the bed, and an idea suddenly flashed in my mind. That is right. It doesn't matter who this child's father is. As long as the mother is me, that is enough. If I say he is the son of Marquis Wuan, then he is the son of Marquis Wuan. As for who the child's father is, my eyes glinted, and with a beaming smile, I raised my hand and caressed Liang Xuan's fair face. Liang Xuan's skin wasn't as rough as I'd imagined. On the contrary, it felt very good to the touch. His waist was also very powerful. His legs were firm, and his arms were long and slender. He would forcefully trap me in the crook of his arms, and occasionally when I let out an unbearable cry, Liang Xuan would carefully stop and ask me in a restrained and nervous low voice. After 2 months of such diligent work, I successfully got pregnant. I found an opportunity and then tricked Murong and into my room. After knocking him unconscious, I found a sensible brothel girl to work him over for a while. It wasn't until she left at dawn that I moved the unconscious Murong and onto the couch, lay down myself, and positioned myself to lie in his arms. That brothel girl's skills must have been pretty good, and she was very bold. When Murong woke up and looked at me, he showed a rare look of embarrassment. I didn't say anything, just smiled, thoughtfully brought over a bowl of tea, and served it to him to drink. Not long after, the news of my pregnancy spread throughout the manor. Married for nearly 10 years, Murong didn't have a single child, and the son he finally managed to have then passed away from being frail and sickly. If you were to say it was the women's problem, but with so many women, how could it be possible that not a single child was born? This matter was a piece of gossip in the capital. Murong considered himself a suave playboy, and when this came out, it was undoubtedly a slap to his face as a man. But he really couldn't prove anything. He could only increase his visits to the brothels and go all out in wearing down those courtesans, trying to prove something through this method. Therefore, as soon as the news of my pregnancy came out, Murong immediately took it seriously, even ignoring the perfumed girl in his arms, and quickly returned home. After all, I am his legitimate wife. If the child I give birth to is a boy, his status would naturally be different from those of concubines, mistresses, and the like. He probably really values this eldest son by the legitimate wife. For 2 months straight, Murong stayed overnight at the manor, showing me a rare bit of gentleness and consideration, as if we were still that fairy tale couple from before. If I didn't know about the poisoning incident, I might have really thought so. It wasn't until the beginning of the 3rd month that Murong started getting restless, once again staying out all night. Xiao Kui doesn't understand these things. She only wishes for my relationship with Murong and to be smooth, so that I would have an easier time. When she saw Murong start philandering outside, again after settling down for 2 months, she was instantly both angry and upset. "Me lady, how could the Marquis be like this?" Xiao Kui trailed off, but seeing me still eating carelessly, she immediately got angry again. "My lady, it was bad enough that the Marquis ignored the matter of you being poisoned before, but how can you not be anxious about it at all? Even if you don't like the Marquis, you should still take advantage of the good fortune of the little heir in your belly. Seize the opportunity to put on an act and curry some favor." She had already defaulted to thinking I was going to have a son. The Marquis is still young, and there are plenty of seductive sluts outside. All those flirts and coquettes are dying to get into this household. While the Marquis's focus is on you, you should patiently coax him for now, and wait until the child is born. As long as you give birth to the little heir and gain the upper hand, then everything will be fine. What if the Marquis has another child outside? Then what are we going to do if that child fights with us for the family estate in the future? Xiao Kui gritted her teeth, as if prepared to be scolded by me, and finished what she had to say in one breath. Only then did she worriedly look up at me. We stared at each other. I always thought Xiao Kui was simple-minded and couldn't see through Murong, so she always mindlessly tried to set us up. But I never expected her to think like that. It seems I've been misunderstanding her all this time. I couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Kui looked a bit baffled, but she could tell I was laughing at her. "Miss," Xiao Kui blushed. "I am serious. You can't ignore this." I pinched this little girl's face and said with a smile, "You, little girl, are really full of surprises. but you don't have to worry. Our great Marquis, he won't have any more illegitimate children." Xiao Kui couldn't understand, a confused expression on her face. I didn't want to say more, just rubbed my belly and leisurely started drinking tea. Mirangan naturally can't have children. Men are also very fragile sometimes. A tiny bit of medicine is enough to end his family line. The stuff in that cup of tea, I went through a lot of trouble to get it, afraid the effect wouldn't be good. For the 2 months he has been living in the manor, I have also specially added this stuff to his food. You dare poison me, and I'll dare to make sure you have no descendants. When I was 4 months pregnant, I received an invitation from the palace to celebrate Princess Yaoan's birthday. Yaoan was Consort Bai's daughter, the emperor's eldest. She was very favored in her early years and married a famous young talent from the capital, who seemed to be some relative from Consort Bai's side. As Consort Bai grew old and her beauty faded, and with the birth of new princes and princesses in the palace, Yaoan gradually fell out of favor. After her husband, the prince consort, died of illness, and she became a widow, she completely lost all her support. That being said, she was the eldest daughter after all, so the emperor still held her in some regard. Every year on Yaoan's birthday, he would order the palace to host a celebration for her. Although, I don't know how Yaoan and Mirangan hooked up. As long as it doesn't threaten my position, it is none of my business even if Mirangan has an affair with an imperial consort. As for me, what I care about most right now is this child in my belly. After a few rounds of drinks, Mirangan made an excuse about sobering up and slipped out of the banquet. I glanced around and noticed Princess Yaoan was also long gone. I sent Xiao Kui to watch them. About a quarter of an hour later, Xiao Kui ran back. Her face flushed red, and I couldn't tell if it was from anger or embarrassment. She told me that the two of them met in a secluded palace hall. As soon as they saw each other, they started saying shameless things. Murong and embraced Yaoan, and after being all over each other for a while, they rolled onto the bed. Maybe they thought that since they were in the imperial palace, no one would wander around, and it was very safe, so the two of them didn't post a lookout. Xiao Kui found a chance and quickly slipped back to report to me. Calculating the time, the two of them should be in the heat of it right now. By the time I get there, they should be just about finished. I had Xiao Kui wait here, then went outside and called for Liang Xuan, telling him to lead the way. He had been following Xiao Kui just now, so of course he knew the route. Liang Xuan led me to that palace, and I have to say, as soon as I got near the door, I heard some lewd sounds coming from inside. I looked up at Liang Xuan. He also seemed not to have expected that the two were still at it. For a moment, he seemed a bit helpless, rubbing his nose and deliberately turning his head away, not daring to look at me. As the sounds grew more intense, I noticed Liang Xuan's ears also inexplicably flushed a shade of crimson. Seeing him so innocent, I found it a bit amusing. I suddenly remembered, back when I decided I wanted a child, I ordered Liang Xuan over, and after I made him get into my bed, his usually ice-cold face inexplicably flushed bright red. It is just a man and a woman making love. What is there to be shy about? I suddenly remembered what he was like the first time he got into my bed. He was at a complete loss then, not knowing what. In the end, he could only lie flat on the bed, daring only to stare at me with wide eyes, as helpless as a little puppy. That look of his was quite endearing. Thinking of this, I found the young man before me more and more pleasing to the eye. How come I never noticed before that I had such an interesting person by my side? Princess Yaoan, just a wall away, was still moaning. She kept calling out Brother Murong, her cries extremely wanton, without a shred of a royal lady's dignity. I waited patiently, and only when they were about to finish did I have Liang Xuan take me to hide in a tree. The two came out dressed. Yaoan's cheeks were flushed, and Murong An had a look of satisfaction on his face. Brother Murong, my heart is pounding. Yaoan spoke softly, like a pitiful rabbit, saying, "Will we really not be discovered like this? I am so scared." She was already a married woman, well past her 20s. and sexually experienced, yet she still put on the air of a young girl experiencing her first love, which was quite nauseating to watch. "Sweetheart, don't be afraid." Murong-an looked at her obsessively, pulling her into his arms to comfort her. I checked carefully before leaving my seat. No one will notice us, the banquet's still just getting started. All right then. So this is the type Murong-an is into. The two were affectionate for a while longer, before Yaoan pretended to ask casually, "Brother Murong, when can we be together? When can you divorce that wife of yours?" At the mention of me, a flicker of hesitation instantly appeared on Murong-an's face. But the moment he saw Yaoan's pitiful look, his heart softened, and he quickly coaxed, "Divorce her. Of course I'll divorce that woman. It is just that it is not the right time yet. Yao Yao, you know how hard it is for me, now that I've finally managed to have a child. I have to at least wait for her to give birth to this child first." Give birth to a child. That is still so long away. Yaoan cried, But, Brother Murong, I can't wait that long. You know, the Hugh Barbarian delegation is coming soon. Right now there are no princesses of suitable age in the court. If they ask for a marriage alliance, with me being a twice-married woman, who in the capital would be willing to marry me? Who would even care if I live or die? I'll definitely be married off by Father Emperor. I don't want to go to the grasslands, Brother Murong. I want to be with you. If it weren't for my mother concubine insisting on marrying me to my cousin to consolidate our family's status back then, I would have wanted to marry you. My heart has always belonged to you. An emissary delegation for a marriage alliance. I listened without showing any emotion, and it is true there has been such a matter recently. I heard that the Khan of the Hu Barbarians is already over 50. No wonder Princess Yaoan is so desperate. It turns out she was worried about being married off to an old man from the steppes. After speaking, Yaoan started to cry softly, and Murong-an couldn't stand to see a beauty shed tears, especially when it was the sweetheart he once couldn't get his hands on. His heart immediately ached for her, and he coaxed her for a good while before finally calming Yaoan down. Seeing Yaoan's tear-filled eyes, her eye rims still red, Murong-an hesitated for a moment, before finally speaking, "Yao Yao, I do have a way for you to avoid marrying to the grasslands. It is just, you'll have to be wronged a bit." "Just say it, Brother Murong." Yaoan wiped her tears. "In my current situation, how much more wronged can I be?" Murong-an's method was simple. He could marry Yaoan with the rights of a principal wife, making her a co-wife of equal status. Yaoan was dumbfounded, staring at Murong-an. It took her a long while to react, and when she did, she burst into tears again. "Brother Murong, I know I am unworthy as a remarried woman, but I refuse to just watch the man I love be harmonious and loving with another woman. Even though I am a princess, I can be by your side without caring about status. But I can't stand it. I can't stand my husband being gentle and considerate towards another woman all day." As she finished speaking, she turned to leave heartbrokenly, but Murong-an hurriedly grabbed her and explained eagerly, "That is just an act. Yao Yao, listen to me explain. That Liu Yingying, that she tiger, I am just putting on a show with her. The one I truly love is you, of course. I can't stand that either." Yaoan cried like a pear blossom in the rain. "Even if it is an act, I can't stand it. If this is how it is, then I'd rather marry to the grasslands. Brother Murong, I will absolutely not share a husband with another woman." Seeing his beloved cry so heartbreakingly, Murong-an was heartbroken, holding her and offering all sorts of sweet nothings, all sorts of apologies and explanations. I saw Yaoan sobbing softly in Murong-an's arms, and my gaze gradually darkened. After wandering around for a bit more and returning to the banquet, I found that Yaoan was already back. Murong-an came in a little while later and sat down next to me. I don't know what plan they came up with, but when the two of them exchanged a glance, it was all ambiguous and tender again. Leaving the palace, Princess Yaoan, pretending to be unintentional, passed by my side, revealing a bit of a hickey on her neck. "Lady Marquis, long time no see." Yaoan smiled, looked me up and down, revealing a victor's smile, madam. Why are you here all alone? Where did the Marquis go? Oh, he went to drive the horse carriage. I answered honestly, and then I saw Yaowen's face instantly turn ugly. Lady Hao is pregnant? Yaowen stared intently at my belly, her tone laced with a bit of acrimony and spite. I've heard that pregnancy is very hard on people. The slightest carelessness could result in 1 corpse and 2 lives. Your ladyship looks to be quite far along. You'd better be careful. Thank you for your concern, princess. My expression didn't change. I still maintained a proper smile. My Marquis often says that too. He is so precious with me now, saying it is not safe outside and dislikes me running around all day. So it is better to stay at home and drink some soup, he simmers himself. When Yaowen heard this, her face turned even uglier after all. When the two of them meet, they're so busy having their affair. How could they have time for the tender, respectful romance of a married couple? Just then, Mirangan drove over. Seeing me standing with Princess Yaowen, he immediately looked very nervous. Yaowen stared at him intently, her eyes filled with resentment. Seeing my expression was unchanged, Mirangan was finally relieved. He made a show of bowing to Princess Yaowen, then thoughtfully helped me into the carriage, where I couldn't see. His and Yaowen's gazes intertwined. Neither of them spoke, thinking they had hidden their affair very well. Ridiculous. There was still half a month until the Humong delegation's arrival in the capital. For the past few days, Mirangan had been staying in the Marquis's manor, visiting me from time to time, having a meal or asking about trivial matters in the manor, or else he'd just stare at my belly in a daze. I knew he wanted to discuss with me the matter of marrying Princess Yaowen as an equal wife. I don't know how he convinced Yaowen, a grand princess, to be a step below me and be an equal wife. Marrying a co-wife is not the same as taking a concubine. It requires the main wife's decision, and it is not up to him to decide alone. It was rare to see Mirangan looking so frustrated, which made me feel much better. He didn't bring it up, so I didn't take the initiative to ask. Until today, when news came from the imperial court that the Human delegation has already passed through 2 provinces and will reach the capital in another 10 days. As soon as court was dismissed, Mirangan rushed over to find me and brought up the matter of taking a co-wife of equal status. A co-wife of equal status. I put on a very surprised look and said hesitantly, "Husband, you must not be joking. The princess is of royal blood. How could she lower herself to be beneath me and become the concubine of a duke? Besides, I've heard that although the princess's prince consort has passed away from illness, it hasn't been 3 years yet. How can marriage be mentioned again, and for no reason? How did the princess come to know you, husband? Don't tell me you." Seeing the suspicious look in my eyes, Mirangan was clearly uncomfortable. He first took a sip of tea, and only then did he say to me, "What are you thinking, my wife? The princess and I are completely innocent. Taking her as a co-wife of equal status is merely a matter of expediency, my wife, to tell you the truth. The Hu barbarian envoy is now in the capital, and she is worried she'll be sent away for a political marriage, crying her eyes out all day. To avoid the political marriage, the only way is for her to marry again. The princess did me a great favor many years ago, and I've always seen her as a little sister. Now that she is in a difficult situation, I naturally want to help her, but I can't wrong you, so I could only resort to this poor plan." But I feigned reluctance, caressing my swollen belly. "My status is humble. It is nothing compared to the princess's. Even if you say she is a co-wife of equal status, if this child is born, wouldn't it have 2 mothers? Being the child of Her Highness, the princess is naturally more prestigious than being my child. Who knows? Maybe they could even become the heir in the future. Husband, I really... My lady, you don't have to worry." Hearing me relent, Mirangan immediately got excited and promised profusely, "I, your husband, can guarantee that the child will only recognize you as their mother. You are the wife I, the Marquis, properly married. This child is the one you carried for 10 months and gave birth to. He is my legitimate eldest son, if you are worried, my lady. Then tomorrow I will go petition His Majesty to confer the title of heir apparent upon our child." Mirangan's words were firm and resonant, and he gazed at me affectionately, with an expression of sincerity that could be witnessed by the heavens. If I hadn't known what he was planning, I really would have been fooled by him. He dared to make such a promise only because he thinks I don't have long to live. When the time comes, Princess Yaowen will be the only one left in the manor, so whether he is the heir or not, wouldn't he still be her child? With this child, Murongan could justifiably take over the assets of my general's manor. As it happens, I also need this child to help me justifiably take over the family estate of the Marquise of Wuan's manor. In the end, Princess Yaowen compromised. On the eve of the diplomatic mission's arrival in the capital, she entered the Marquis of Wuan's manor in a hurry through the side gate, with the status of an equal wife but the ceremony of a concubine. Why the ceremony of a concubine? Because I was the one who arranged it. I pretended to be careless due to my pregnancy and deliberately arranged for Princess Yaowen to be brought in with the ceremony of a concubine. I heard that Yaowen was so angry she smashed a lot of things in her princess manor, but time was tight, and there was truly no way to re-prepare everything for an equal wife ceremony. She had no choice but to endure the gossip, and with the rights of a concubine, become the co-wife of the Marquis Wuan's residence. Yaowen really has her ways. She has got Murong and completely mesmerized. He has been staying in her room for days on end, making all those concubines red-eyed with jealousy, and they've all been coming to me to complain. I didn't say anything, just waved my hand and dismissed these concubines. The women of the rear courtyard always think that if they capture their husband's heart, everything will be fine, but they forget that in this rear residence, the one truly in charge is the main wife. While the two of them were being all lovey-dovey and inseparable, I seized the opportunity, settled some of the mansion's accounts, and secretly transferred all those shops of the Marquise's mansion into my hands. Also included in the scheme was Yaowen's luxurious and opulent princess mansion. Since she became someone else's concubine, she naturally belongs to her husband's family now. So this princess mansion should rightfully fall under the name of the Marquise's mansion, and naturally, it became mine too. I am so vicious, but I really like myself. A month later, I smoothly gave birth to a baby boy. The baby had a rosy complexion and cried very vigorously when he was born. I named him Cheng Xuan. At the baby's 100-day celebration, I asked Liang Xuan, what nickname did he want to give the child? He held the baby stiffly, stammered for a long time, and couldn't manage to say anything sensible. Forget it, let's just call the baby's nickname Wood. Naturally, the happiest person was Murong, and as soon as the child was born, the rumors in the capital city about him not being able to perform were debunked without any effort. Once he was happy, he immediately, as promised, submitted a memorial to the emperor to confer the title of heir of Marquis Wuan upon little Cheng Xuan Murong, and valued this child greatly. He came to my place every evening to see him, looking quite high-spirited and triumphant. Whenever I thought about how this wasn't his bloodline, and then looked at Murong and holding the child with that completely satisfied look on his face, an indescribable sense of pleasure would rise in my heart. As little Cheng Xuan grew older and older, my body didn't deteriorate day by day as Murongan had expected. Instead, it became healthier and healthier. This made him a little uneasy. He had the kitchen secretly increase the dosage of poison for me, but years ago, this entire inner residence was already firmly in the palm of my hand. At first, Yaowen was still showing off her power in front of me, but as time went on, she discovered that none of these things could affect me at all. It was her, on the other hand, who spent all day in the mansion fighting with the concubines, busy with scheming to win favor and currying favor with others, leaving her completely exhausted in both body and mind. She spent huge amounts of silver like flowing water, but it didn't make a single ripple. In this mansion, whoever people were supposed to listen to, they still listened to. Yaowen had no other way, so she could only use pillow talk on Murongan, intending to take away my authority to manage the household. But Murongan himself couldn't even handle me, so how could he possibly help her? Unable to coax or persuade, after trying time and again, Murongan also got annoyed, but was also afraid to face Yao An, so he simply decided to go all the way and hid himself away at his kept mistress's place. In the residence, I alone am the biggest, and the concubines are all obedient to me, not daring to disobey. The daily morning and evening greetings, the servants making things difficult and being harsh, deathly cold, thin clothes of spring, the summer bowls of ice that melted to water, the allergy-inducing chrysanthemums of autumn, the choking, low-quality charcoal of winter. I knew nothing, just wrapped in thick clothes and holding a pure gold hand warmer, drinking this year's new tea, watching at ease as Yaoan sank deep into these trivial matters, day after day, becoming more and more broken and desperate. And Morangan, because of little Chung Xuan, also came running to my place every few days. Yao An finally felt a sense of crisis. She began to frequently summon the imperial physicians in the mansion, and privately sought out some famous doctors among the common people, secretly starting to nurse her own body, intending to salvage something through having a child. What a pity she doesn't know, no matter how hard she tries. In this life, she will never be able to conceive Murongan's child, because Murongan has already been made sterile by me, ending his family line. So when I heard the news of Yao An's pregnancy, my first reaction was, could it be that something went wrong with the medicine? But then I immediately calmed down. Absolutely impossible. With that dosage of medicine, even if Murongan really did have the ability to father children at the very beginning, after taking it for years and years, he would have become a eunuch by now, even if he were a robust breeding hog. Since the problem isn't with Murongan, then it can only be that there is a problem with Yao An. He thought it over and over, and could only come up with two possibilities: a false pregnancy, or cheating. The doctor who took Yao An's pulse is my man, and he told me that Yao An was indeed pregnant. It was not a false pregnancy. I laughed as soon as I heard this, wondering who was so bold as to dare get Yao An secretly pregnant right under Murongan's nose. Murongan was pleasantly surprised when he heard the news. He didn't even eat dinner and rushed over to Yao An's courtyard without stopping. After I coaxed little Chung Xuan to sleep, I had Liang Xuan take me to Yao An's courtyard. We lay on the roof, lifted a tile, and watched the two embracing inside the room. Brother Murong. Yao An looked at Murong, and her face full of sorrow. Do you still remember? You once promised me that you would marry me as your legal wife. It has been 2 years already. Why haven't you divorced your wife yet? Murongan was still trying to coax her, but unlike before, Yao An didn't let him off the hook so easily. Instead, she touched her belly and pressed him. I am pregnant now. Brother Murong, are you really going to let our child lack a rightful status and be born of a concubine? Or is it that you feel your life is perfect now, and you can't bear to kill that venomous woman anymore? Yao An said, and sad tears flowed from her eyes. Her whole person seemed to be shrouded in sadness. Ayo, don't cry, don't cry. My Yao Yao, your makeup is all smudged from crying. Murong, and was originally very irritated, but seeing Yao An like this, he suddenly remembered something, and his heart ached for her in an instant. He coaxed her in a low, humble voice for a long time before Yao An barely stopped crying and was held in his arms. Yao Yao, just wait a little longer. Don't upset the baby. It is not that I am unwilling, it is just that Liu Yingying is too despicable. Maybe it is because I gave her the cold shoulder too much before. I don't know what is wrong with her. Now she is so terribly distant with me. I ask her to come over for a meal and she won't come. I really had no opportunity to poison her. Then you just find someone to tie her up and bring her here, and kill her with one slash. Yao An let out a hysterical scream, startling Murong An. He hesitated for a moment, looked at Yao An with some hesitation, and whispered, This is too vicious. She is Chung Xuan's birth mother after all. I really can't. I saw Yao An gritting her teeth hard, unwillingly clenching her fists, timid and afraid of trouble, weak and incompetent, repaying kindness with enmity, vicious and stupid. These are the flaws hidden under Murong An's handsome appearance. Yao An, oh Yao An, what on earth did you see in him? Even if you are in a bottomless abyss and want to grab a life-saving rope, you can't just choose one blindly. He is not your life-saving straw at all, but a handful of utterly rotten weeds. In these past few years, I have already transferred most of the assets of the Marquis Wuan. I wasn't scared of what Morongan would do. At this moment, I just thought it was fun, and was curious to see what kind of tricks they could pull. And also, I looked at Yaowen's stomach, feeling extremely curious. I usually never saw her getting close to anyone. The baby in her belly. Whose child is it, really? Yaowen loves listening to opera, and according to my investigation, the first time she and Morongan met was in an opera house. The biggest opera house in the capital city is Uxianlu. I put on a fake beard, bound my chest, and drew my eyebrows and eyes to look rougher, disguising myself as a skinny man, then pretended to be brothers with Liang Xuan, and followed Yaowen to the playhouse. As soon as I stepped into the playhouse, I saw many young masters. They were hugging delicate flower girls as they drank wine and painted, indulging in all sorts of romantic and decadent pleasures, which made my brow twitch. I rarely set foot in places like this, usually even to watch a play. I just invite the troupe to my home. Because my mother came from a scholarly family, after she passed away, my dad was always afraid he would lead me astray and tarnish my mother's good name. So before I was married, he went to the palace and hired the best female official to teach me. I originally thought that watching an opera in a place where many young masters from prestigious and noble families gathered would be more elegant, but I didn't expect it to be so explicit. Forget it. What good can come from a place where a bunch of men get together? Yaowen familiarly went up to the second floor and entered a private room. I waited downstairs for a bit, then followed her up and went into the room next to hers. They called it a private room, but it was really just a hazy, ambiguous curtain separating the seats. When the opera reached its climax, many people clapped and cheered. I saw that Yaowen seemed to be engrossed too, and she couldn't help but speak a few lines from the opera. As soon as she finished, the strange young master behind the curtain next to her picked up her line. Even though they were separated by a curtain, it was as if they knew each other, trading lines back and forth, very much like soulmates. Not long after, Yaowen had someone remove the curtain, and the two of them met. Could it be that he is the child's biological father? I was too curious, so I secretly took a step forward, leaned against the railing, and glanced over nonchalantly. Unexpectedly, I actually saw the heir of the Duke of Wei, Wei Zhan. The Duke of Wei holds significant power, and his influence in the court is not to be underestimated. He is not someone that a person like Murong An, who only has the empty title of Marquis, can compare to. I heard the young master of Wei has few heirs, with only this one son, Wei Zhan, whom he usually dotes on like a precious treasure. How did Yaowen hook up with him? I was startled, and before I could back away, I heard Yaowen's delicate voice from over there. Your Highness, I have something I want to tell you. What is it that has to be said right now? Wei Zhan chuckled lightly, pulling Yaowen into his arms and raising a hand to skillfully slip his fingers into her lapel. There were still many people here. Yaowen's expression changed, and she hurriedly grabbed his fingers. Seeing Wei Zhan's displeased expression, she quickly put on a smile, a bit fawning, and a bit coquettishly reproachful. Thursday, there are too many people here. Your Highness, let's go down. There were several private rooms in the theater for people to rest. I saw Wei Zhan, with his arm around Yaowen, head deeper inside, as if he knew the way well. I took a sip of my cold tea and followed them. It grew quieter the deeper I went into the theater, though I could still faintly hear the opera from the front. I watched as Wei Zhan pulled Yaowen into a room around the corner, and before long, the sounds of a man and woman making love came from inside. Miss, Liang Xuan came over quietly and whispered in my ear. This subordinate just took a look around. This place should be the theater's back rooms, a place specially for the actors to meet with patrons who book private performances. What they meet for is self-evident. To think there is such shady business in a theater. I shook my head. It was a real eye-opener. I had Liang Xuan keep watch, while I carefully went over, leaned against the door, and listened to the two people chatting inside. Your Highness, You truly are a peerless beauty. This was Wei Zhan's voice, and it carried a hint of satisfaction. Alas, I met your highness too late. Otherwise I would have definitely had my father ask his majesty for your hand. Young lord, you don't mind that I've been married before? Yao An seemed to be leaning in his arms, and said with some surprise, Your highness is of royal blood and a rare beauty. For a dandy like me to receive your favor and be your confidant is already the greatest honor. How could I possibly mind? Young lord, it is embarrassing to say. Wei Zhan sighed, seeming very sad. I have admired your highness for a long time. When your highness married into the Marquise Wuan's residence, I was secretly heartbroken for a long time. That Murong An, a good-for-nothing who built his fortune on a woman. What right did he have to win your favor? I used to hate him so much, I could grind my teeth. But now, hearing that your highness is with child and living so happily, I have no regrets. Yao An seemed to be in disbelief, but in the end, I heard her speak through her tears. Ajahn, you've actually had these feelings for me all this time. Why didn't you tell me sooner? What? Wei Zhan seemed a bit dazed, but Yao An hugged him tightly and sobbed. I am not doing well at all. You don't know what a hellish life I am living in the Marquise's mansion. Murong An is a total coward. He can't protect me. The matriarch of that Marquise's mansion is a total viper. She can't stand to see me doing well. She is jealous that I am a princess, and jealous of my looks. She gives me low-quality charcoal, making the room full of smoke, and even gives me winter clothes made of reeds. Ajahn, I am not happy at all. Yao An hugged Wei Zhan, crying so heartbrokenly. As the saying goes, a beauty's tears are heartbreaking. Wei Zhan hadn't expected Yao An to be so unhappy, and after hesitating for a moment, he asked aloud, Then why did you so recklessly marry Murong An back then, and even displeased his majesty? Back then, Yao An married Murong An as a co-wife of equal standing. Although she was called a wife, for a princess to share a husband with another woman was truly a laughingstock and damaged the imperial family's prestige. In addition, the Hu barbarian envoy had long ago requested to marry a princess. It just so happened that Yao An's prince consort had died, and since she couldn't get married off in the capital anyway, he intended to marry Yao An off to the grasslands. To ensure things went smoothly, he even leaked some information to consort by in advance. Unexpectedly, Yao An, as a princess, had such little sense of duty. Instead, to avoid going to the grasslands, she would rather marry Murong An as a co-wife of equal standing. The one who ended up marrying to the grasslands was His Majesty's own younger sister, only 15 or 16 years old. I heard that His Majesty even developed a rift with the Empress Dowager because of this. Although His Majesty didn't say anything, he was, after all, somewhat displeased with Yao An, and later even revoked the privilege of holding a birthday banquet for her in the palace. If His Majesty hadn't grown to detest her, how would I, a mere woman of the inner court, have dared to actually lay a hand on the princess? That was for self-preservation, Yao An said sadly. If I wasn't forced by the situation, how could I be willing to marry Murong An? The grasslands are desolate. That barbarian Khan is over 50. It is said he has already tormented 2 of his consorts to death. I have no power or influence. If I travel thousands of miles to marry him, how could I possibly survive? The 2 of them hugged each other, and Yao An cried for a long time. I was really curious about their expressions, so I secretly pushed the door open a crack. So that is how it is. Wei Zhan sighed, looking at Yao An with a pained and resentful expression. Yao, it is me who has wronged you. It is just a pity that you are pregnant now. I really... No, that is not it. Yao An suddenly grabbed his hand, a smile appearing on her face in excitement. Ajahn, you don't know. The child I am carrying is yours, not Murong An's. Wei Zhan was both shocked and overjoyed. He solemnly promised Yao An that once the child was born, he would find a way to help her escape the Marquise's residence. Yao An wiped her tears. Wei Zhan protected her. The 2 of them left satisfied. I had wanted to sneak away too, but unfortunately, a female opera singer came along, and fearing I'd be discovered, I had no choice but to duck into the private room where those two were having their affair earlier. That woman was stunningly beautiful, and still in her stage costume. After looking around for a moment, she actually walked into Wei Zhan's room. Hiding in the closet, I felt something was off. I wanted to get Liang Xuan to come and knock her out, but then I saw Wei Zhan had actually returned. The moment he saw the woman in the room, he went up and intimately wrapped his arm around her waist, his hands restlessly caressing up and down. I heard him call that woman Lan Shang. Lan Shang! I thought back for a moment, and then I remembered, isn't she the lead actress from that opera I saw earlier? Young Lord, the woman, charming and seductive, proactively wrapped her arms around Wei Zhan's neck and straddled him. Who was that just now? A princess from which house? I saw you were so captivated your soul practically left you. You barely watched any of the show. You with that sharp tongue of yours, aren't you afraid of offending people? Wei Zhan kissed her passionately, saying nonchalantly, that is Princess Yaoan. Be careful she doesn't hear you, or she'll tear your mouth to shreds. Oh, Princess Yaoan. The woman covered her mouth in an exaggerated gesture, her eyes full of mockery. Isn't she supposed to be the #1 beauty in the capital? Besides, aren't princesses supposed to be all high and mighty? What is one doing running to a place like our opera house? She poked Wei Zhan's chest, pretending to be troubled, to have a secret rendezvous with my lover. The two of them started to flirtatiously banter. What princess? Wei Zhan sneered, and started caressing the woman's lower back on his own, saying disdainfully, back then she could still be called the #1 beauty, but now she is nothing more than a ruined old woman. Back then, this daddy saw she was pretty, and an eldest princess at that. So I figured I'd marry her to be my official wife just for show. But what does she do? She actually got all high and mighty, despising my few concubines, and even declared she wouldn't marry a debauched person like this Shizi, just a princess with nothing but her title and a pretty face. That is all. No talent, no virtue, no power, no influence. A girl who is supposed to stay in her boudoir, yet she runs to the theater all day, reciting poetry and composing couplets with those young masters. Who doesn't know what kind of intentions she has? If it weren't for the fact that this prince doesn't enter officialdom, and that taking a wife is inferior to marrying a princess, she too is worthy to be my consort. Still dreaming of marrying up, doesn't she take a look at whether she is worthy of them? She acted so high and mighty, but what about in the end? Not only did she marry a short-lived Fuma, now she is even a Pingqi. What Pingqi? Isn't that just a concubine? Isn't she still sharing a husband with someone else? She would have been better off marrying this Shizi back then to be an idle Shizi Fei. The more Wei Zhan spoke, the angrier he got, until finally even the woman couldn't stand it anymore. She patted his chest and coaxed in a soft voice. If that is the case, why are you, Your Highness, still so hung up on her? And why go to all this thankless trouble to help her? Who said I helped her? Wei Zhan laughed, fiddling with the lipstick on the woman's red lips. You actually took that seriously. Back then, this #1 beauty made me itch with desire, and it was unbearable not getting my hands on her. In the past, she, Princess Yaoan, was a virgin, was favored by His Majesty, and had consort by backing her up. After sleeping with her, one must be responsible. So it was a perfect opportunity for me, this young lord, to marry her back as my official wife. But what does she count as now? Wei Zhan sneered. Even that reclusive, powerless Lady Wuan can easily manipulate her, and she still has the face to come running to me, crying and whining, idiot. I am just playing around with her for now. Anyway, she is the one who came on to me. And it is free, at worst. I'll just come clean. In any case, she is the one who'll be out of luck, not me, this crown prince. After Wei Zhan finished speaking, he nonchalantly stripped off the woman's clothes and pushed her down onto the soft couch in the room. Sigh, this is killing me. Seeing this, I quickly closed both my eyes and covered my ears. Who knows whose bastard she is carrying, and she dares to pin the blame on this crown prince. These were the last words I heard Wei Zhan say. Little Cheng Xuan is already 3 years old this year, and often stares with his pitch-black eyes, sitting by himself on the edge of the bed and looking out the window. His personality very quiet. Every time Murong An comes to visit, he always shakes his head and says, "Who knows who they got this personality from? Duh, they're not your child. Whoever they take after, it won't be you." Princess Yawen has been in high spirits lately. Because of the pregnancy, Mirongan has started sticking to her all day again and rarely comes to my side anymore. Not having to feign civility with that scumbag, I was happy to have some peace and quiet and had Xiaokui go out to keep watch all day. While inside the room, I had Liang Xuan look after little Cheng Xuan to let them bond. Cheng Xuan can already call him daddy. Liang Xuan went from being clumsy at the beginning to now being able to expertly change the baby's diapers, and can also quickly, precisely, and ruthlessly snatch away anything little Cheng Xuan gets curious about and tries to put in his mouth. He is his real dad after all. Little Cheng Xuan is obviously a bit closer to Liang Xuan. Little Cheng Xuan is nominally the heir of Marquis Wuan. He is definitely going to inherit the family business in the future. I don't want little Cheng Xuan to think his mother is some kind of indecent person, but I don't know how to explain the issue of his biological father, kill Murong An, and then hide Cheng Xuan's parentage from him. This seems to be the best way. I glanced at Liang Xuan and found that such an 8-foot-tall man was carefully carrying little Cheng Xuan on his back at this moment, the joy in his eyes unconcealable. I still remember the surprised and flustered look on this man's face when Cheng Xuan called him daddy for the first time. I bet if little Cheng Xuan wanted him to die back then, he would have been willing to immediately dig out his own heart and give it to the kid to play with. Not letting the child call him dad, isn't that killing him? Come to think of it, when I had this child back then, I never even asked him if he was willing. I was only thinking about scheming against Murong. Thinking back on it now, although Liang Xuan is my shadow guard, if it weren't for my interference, he would have married and had children long ago. Speaking of which, it was I, this woman, who held him back. There is no such thing as a wall that doesn't leak. Something like a person's parentage, even if you really want to hide it, you might not be able to. Oh well, forget it. I'll have to think of another way. I originally planned to just kill Murong An, but then I considered that if the child doesn't have a dad, he could easily be hurt by his environment while growing up. The role of a father is very important for a child's development. If my son gets attacked for not having a dad, that would be a real problem. So what should I do? Is there a way to both keep Murong An from hanging around in front of me and let little Cheng Xuan publicly call someone dad? Watching the father and son playing in the room, I suddenly had an extremely bold idea. Yawen and Murong An, that pair of illicit lovers, have disgusted me for so many years. Now that everything is ready, and I have nothing holding me back, I certainly won't let them off. Since I've decided to deal with Yawen, I will absolutely not do something stupid, like killing the mother but keeping the child, or killing the mother to raise the child. Regardless of whether this child is born or not, I will not let it remain in the Marquis Wuan's residence. I don't have that kind of kind heart, nor that kind of patience. Want to get a share of the family fortune from me. Dream on. Murong An cares most about his reputation and his dignity as a man in his life. If he knew the child in Yaoan's belly wasn't his, I wonder what he would think. No matter how much others say, it is not as good as seeing it with your own eyes. As long as Yaoan feels wronged, she will definitely go see Wei Zhan to pour out her grievances. After all, in her eyes, romantic love is greater than heaven. A man who doesn't mind that she married 2 men, who doesn't care that she lost the emperor's favor, one who, even though she is already married, is still willing to wait for her right where he is, even helping her escape from this sea of suffering, and can understand her thoughts. Isn't this true love? You idiot, it is just that you happen to have someone else to take you in, so he didn't have to be responsible. Throwing yourself at them won't make those young masters take pity on you. All these young masters from prominent families and clans in the capital, which one of them isn't a slick operator? With just a beckon of their hands, droves of women in this world would pounce on them. In their eyes, what do women count for? An official career and family honor are what the sons of noble families value most. They just see you as a wildflower that can be picked at will, that is all. A princess of a nation, who has lived deep within the palace for so long, yet she doesn't even understand such a simple principle. When I put pressure on Yaoan again, deliberately sending people to her courtyard to cause trouble under the pretext of looking after her, she finally couldn't take it anymore and ran to the main courtyard to cry and complain to Murong-An. Murong-An got scolded by her. Considering Yaoan was pregnant, he didn't dare to lose his temper, so he ran to my courtyard. So, the moment Yaoan left the Marquise's residence to clear her head, Murong-An came storming over menacingly. When he arrived, I was reading in the courtyard. I gently flipped a page of my book, without even lifting my eyelids. I could feel Murong-An's imposing manner weaken little by little. Ever since giving birth to little Chung-Xuan, I've moved the weapons my dad left behind here, and have been practicing martial arts daily to stay fit. No wonder Murong-An was discouraged. My courtyard is now filled with all sorts of weapons. Those who know would say it is me, the Marquise's wife, practicing martial arts. Those who don't would think they've walked into an imperial prison for interrogating criminals. My lady, how could you make things difficult for Yaoer? Murong-An finally spoke to me, but he lacked conviction, sounding more like he was complaining to me. I ignored him. Only when his face was alternating between red and pale with anger did I finally close my book and look at him with a smile. My Lord Marquis, the other day, someone came causing a scene outside the residence, claiming to be your lordship's mistress and demanding that I let her in to become a concubine. I observed Murong-An for a moment and noticed he had clearly become a bit nervous, so I smiled and said, "These wild women out there must be desperate for wealth and fortune. The gates of our Marquise's residence aren't for just anyone to enter. Even if you take a concubine, she must be of innocent background and decent appearance. My Lord Marquis, weren't you discussing taking a concubine with me a few days ago? I heard there is a Lady Langxiang in the Uxian pavilion. I went to see her. She has a good voice for singing opera. I like her very much, in my opinion, if you are going to take a concubine. My Lord Marquis, why not just take this Lady Langxiang? I'll have someone to talk to as well." As soon as Murong-An heard about taking a concubine, his eyes immediately lit up. He asked me several times if it was true or not, and finally went to the Uxian pavilion joyfully, ready to see that beautiful as a flower Lady Langxiang. What a coincidence. Under the guidance of a waiter, he unintentionally saw Yaoan's figure. As evening approached, a servant came rushing to report that the Lord Marquis had gotten into a fight with the heir of the Duke of Wei. It is said that when the Marquis of Wuan followed the waiter to a private room in the back to have a private talk with one of the pavilion's ladies, he unexpectedly heard a familiar female voice from the next room. He broke down the door and was shocked to find a stark naked Yaoan and Wei Zhan inside. Enraged, he slapped Yaoan twice, then cursed the adulterer and lunged at Wei Zhan to fight. The sweet nothings of the past were gone. Murong-An cursed at the frightened Yaoan, directly calling her a slut and all sorts of nasty things. Wei Zhan wasn't to be outdone either, after all. He was young and hot-blooded. He cursed Murong-An as a good-for-nothing who relied on women, and it is said he nearly beat Murong-An to death. Yaoan was both shocked and terrified. In the end, it was I, the matriarch of the house, who ordered people to carry her back. It is said that after she returned, she almost had a miscarriage. Two men getting into a big fight over one woman, the juicy gossip of an affair between the Marquis Wan's mansion and the Duke of Wei's mansion instantly enveloped the entire capital. No matter what the rumors outside were, 3 months later, Yaoan gritted her teeth, brazened it out, and prematurely gave birth to a boy. It was the boy she wanted. Yaoan cried, made a scene, and threatened to kill herself. In the end, She begged Murong An, saying she was wrong. Murong An was old, after all. The moment Yawen cried, he hesitated. And surprisingly, his heart softened. No matter what, the child is innocent. After all, it is his own seed. Seeing Yawen in a frantic rush to get the child's name on the Marquis Wuan's family registry, I unhurriedly found a doctor known as a miracle doctor, had him write a prescription, and sent it to Murong. And that was the very proof of his infertility. Not long after little Cheng Xuan was born, Murong An's various bodily functions had gradually declined due to his depleted health and other reasons, and he had long since become infertile. And I, fearing my husband would be sad, had always kept this matter buried deep in my heart. I never thought it would be exposed today, all because I couldn't bear to see the bloodline of the Marquis Wuan's mansion being tainted. Murong An completely lost it. I heard that after he read the prescription, he immediately spat out a big mouthful of blood and fainted dead away on the spot. I put on a show of taking care of him for a few days, forcing scalding hot medicine down his throat and giving him a mouthful of blisters. Serves him right. After being in a coma for 3 days, Murong An finally opened his eyes. The moment he got up, I saw that he seemed to have aged quite a bit, and even a lot of his hair had surprisingly turned white. So satisfying. Ignoring Yawen's pleas and cries, he resolutely threw Yawen and her newborn baby out the gates of the Marquis Wuan residence. Holding her child, Yawen wanted to go back to the princess's residence, only to find she couldn't return to what was once her home. "You bastards," Yawen screamed and lunged at the gate, pounding on it again and again, both forcefully and resentfully. "I am a princess. This is my residence. Why won't you let me in? I am going to tell my father emperor. All of you, go to hell." She wanted to go and complain tearfully to the emperor, but she couldn't even get through the gates of the imperial palace. Ever since Consort Bai passed away some years ago, the emperor had completely cut ties with this daughter of his. With no other choice, she could only hold her child and run to the Duke of Wei's residence. But its gates were shut tight. She knocked on the door for a day and a night. Finally, the main gate opened, and a few sturdy matrons walked out. But they kicked her aside and snatched the baby away. I heard that in 3 days, the heir of the Duke of Wei is going to marry Princess Yufu, the daughter of Prince Xiang. Yawen broke down after she found out, and started cursing loudly outside the Duke of Wei's residence. A year later, I saw Yawen on the stage of Yesian Lu. At that time, she was wearing a dance costume, her exposed skin covered in bluish-purple pinch marks, and she feigned coyness, singing suggestive songs loudly, while throwing flirtatious glances at the audience below. I listened to a whole song, felt nothing, and said nothing, only leaving behind a silver ingot. When I got home, Murong An was sitting on the bed. Seeing me return, his eyes lit up. "Ying Ying, Murong An. Do you know?" I sat by the bed, picked up an apple, and gently started peeling it. "Actually, I've always wanted to kill you." Murong An froze, a hint of panic showing in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "You probably still don't know, but I've actually known for several years that you were poisoning my food." I put down the knife and took a bite of the apple. That was a very fragrant and crisp taste. "Do you know why you have so few heirs?" I looked at Murong An, whose face was growing paler and paler. I couldn't help but smile. "Remember our one and only sharing a room. The next morning, I brought you a cup of tea. Do you still remember how it tasted? You venomous woman." Murong An stared at me, his eyes bloodshot. He tried to get off the bed in agitation, but the moment he exerted force, he tumbled right off it. "What did you do to me?" Murong An screamed in terror. "My legs! What is wrong with my legs? Someone come quickly." "No one will come even if you scream your lungs out." I kicked his limp body, ignoring his screams and struggles, picked up the teapot from the table, and poured the scalding hot tea over his head. "You ungrateful, despicable man, have you forgotten how you became the Marquis of Wuan? Was I not good to you? Was my father not good to you? You still dared to go find other women, dared to poison me, and dared to plot against my general's Manor's estate. Venomous woman. You venomous woman, you wretch. I, the Marquis, saw long ago that you had a vicious heart. You, who made you the Marchioness. It was I, the Marquis. How dare you? How dare you? Murongan crawled over, trying to grab my leg, but was kicked away by me, falling back with a bruised and swollen face. Ungrateful thing, you still have the nerve to talk. Are you even qualified? I grabbed him by the collar, slapped him hard a few times, and still not feeling satisfied, I balled my fists and punched him hard in the face a few times, finally stomping hard on his lower abdomen, and only then did I feel mentally and physically relieved. Let me tell you, it is not because you married me that I could become the Marchioness. It is that whoever I marry is the Marquise of Wuan. Murongan, his face covered in fresh blood, looked at me when he saw me bend down and pick up the small apple peeling knife from the table. His eyes immediately widened in terror. You dare, vicious woman, vicious woman. I am the Marquis of Wuan, a husband killer and a noble killer. You can't hide it, even if it is a sudden death from a serious illness. You can't hide it. You can't hide it. Ah, I scraped his face with the knife. He thought I had gouged out his eye, screamed in fear, and clutched his head. Who said I was going to kill my husband? I laughed and waved towards the outside. Under Murongan's dazed and shocked gaze, an identical Murongan walked in from outside the door. Me husband, Marquis Wuan, is right here. I leaned affectionately against Liang Xuan, caressed his face, admiring Murongan on the floor, his eyes bloodshot, looking like he was about to die from anger. Hatred in Murongan's eyes seemed to have materialized, having already sliced me into 1,000 pieces. He finally understood my plan, collapsing onto the ground, and looking at me with a deathly pale face. Cheng Xuan. Yes, I still have Cheng Xuan. Murongan suddenly burst out laughing. He touched his face, which was covered in fresh blood. He laughed maniacally, looking at me venomously. You can't hide it, you woman, you venomous spider. Sooner or later, Cheng Xuan will grow up. He will avenge me. You look down on me. You despise me. But your son also has my blood flowing in his veins. I curse you. You will definitely be by him. Are you crazy? I interrupted Murong, and looking at him as if he were an idiot. Why would you think that Cheng Xuan is your son? What? Murong and froze on the spot. I really wanted to laugh, but I held it back. I covered my mouth and looked at him mockingly. I've already decided to kill you. Why would you think I'd still give birth to your child without a second thought? Patting Liang Xuan's shoulder, I enthusiastically introduced him to Murongan. This is my child's father. Why do you think I found someone to impersonate you? If it weren't to let my son openly call someone daddy, why would I go to all this trouble? Murongan looked as if his soul had been sucked out, slumping onto the ground, utterly dejected. I cleanly plunged the knife into his heart. Fresh blood spurted out. Murongan fell to the ground, looking at me with unwilling eyes. His eyes were full of vicious hatred, and he was mumbling something, probably cursing me, or putting a hex on me. So what? I stepped on his hand, looked at his still-moving eyeballs, and leaned in close to him viciously, saying, I forgot to tell you after you die, I will dress you in hemp mourning clothes, and then use a straw mat to carry you out of the manor. Murongan's eyes widened in fury, looking horrified and unwilling. The mass grave is full of wild dogs. Who knows which dog will be lucky enough to get a bite of the current Marquise's flesh? I laughed out loud, watching as Murongan's struggles grew weaker and weaker, until he finally breathed his last and died. To prevent him from faking his death, I had Liang Xuan cut off Murongan's head, slash his face, then roll him up in a straw mat, toss him into the mass grave, and set it on fire. The firelight reflected on my face. Liang Xuan dropped the torch and walked behind me. Wife, he took my hand from behind. I turned to look at him, and saw Liang Xuan lower his head, speaking meekly. Cheng Xuan is about to wake up. Let's hurry back.